Welcome back to SuperWest on Sundays, everybody, where I'm joined by Stephen Villardo, who's a senior writer here at SuperWest Sports, as well as by Dane Miller, who's an assistant editor and a senior writer here at SuperWest Sports as well. And the three of us make up SuperWest on Sundays. So we're going to be breaking down, some of the games we watched yesterday, some players of the week, maybe even our team of the week if you're lucky. So yeah, excited to talk some college football with some pretty cool stuff across the board yesterday. So first question for you, Steve. Just do you have some initial thoughts or takeaways from the Colorado game?
Yeah, for sure. It was just a heck of a game for one thing. Just a fun game to watch, and obviously it was kind of chippy at the start, which I think you'd expect with all the lead up. I mean, it's a rivalry game, but I don't really think it would have been that chippy if it weren't for the two coaches kind of getting after it beforehand throughout the week. Colorado State outplayed Colorado for sure. I mean, yardage wise, 499 to 418, passing 397 to 348. Rushing, Colorado had no rushing game at all. I think they ended up with 70. Big difference, Colorado State 17 penalties for 187, while the Buffaloes had 10 for 87. Clay Millen was benched during the bye week after the Washington State game, which Colorado State looked awful. Brendan Fowler Nicolosi stepped in and played really well, I would think, in his start there. So I don't know if how much that makes a huge difference for the Rams moving forward, that they just got a much better quarterback, or if it is something that we're going to see play out throughout the year, that I think Washington State might be a better team than Colorado. So who knows? I mean, if you're just taking apples to apples and comparisons, which I know you can't do because Washington State was obviously up for this game in a different way. Excuse me. But yeah, and it was just a great game. And then Shedeur Sanders, when it was crunch time, 98 yards and under 2 minutes, did his best John Elway to pull it out for the Buffs and got it done in overtime. A lot of good individual performances too across the board, and I think we'll get into some of those later. But Colorado had some good defensive plays. Obviously, Hunter went down with a huge hit early in the game, which was a flag, one of those 15-yarders. But I don't know how much that affected the offense for Colorado, but their offense was still good. I mean, they've got so many weapons on offense, and I think Dane talked about it last week with their play calling. They run a good system, I think, in Colorado with their coaches. And I mean, Dion has brought in a lot of good, top-notch assistant coaches. I mean, a lot of head coaching experience there, too, on that staff, and I think it shows as well. Tim Brewster's on there. I think he does the tight ends or the offensive line. So, it was a fun game. It was a good game. Colorado got it done in the end, and hats off to them. But Colorado State with some good performances too. Torrey Horton, I think he had like 17 targets, 16 catches, maybe even 17 receptions. But then he was just a beast and showed that he's an NFL talent at wide receiver. I think he would probably be one of the best wide receivers among our 25 Super West teams without question. So, but great game.
Before we get too far, and Dane, I'm gonna ask you the same question. Who is that Colorado State receiver you mentioned? Because I feel like sometimes guys like this may not get a lot of love. What was that name one more time?
Troy Horton. He had 16 catches last night, 133 and a touchdown. I had him in our preseason all Super West team. I think I had him as a first team receiver. I think I might have had him as like a second team All-American or third team All-American in my preseason preview as well. But he's right there with anybody else, in especially out west of our 25 teams we cover. He's the real deal. I mean, he can run the slot routes. He could be a deep threat on the outside. He can be a possession guy. I mean, I think he could really, any of the three NFL style receiving targets, I think he could probably step in and play any one of those three at the next level. And I think he's 6'2", so he's 6'2", and he can still is nimble enough to line up in the slot and come across the middle and make plays after the catch even too. So he's just talented.
Definitely. All right, Dane, you got some kind of just initial takeaways from the Colorado State game?
Well, I think the first thing that pops in my mind is the chippiness in the game. I know it's a rivalry, but I mean, Travis Hunter ended up in the hospital. I seen a video from I don't know who posted it, but it looked like the quarterback for Colorado was trying to poke somebody in the eye Like I just and then Sanders got a helmet to helmet targeting against him right there in overtime. Looked like he might have got a concussion. So that's just the first thing that pops into mind is the chippiness between the two teams, and like you mentioned, the amount of penalties that were called on Colorado State. That's kind of a big deal to me. I don't know exactly if that was because of the coaches, if that's the natural rivalry between them. I understand, Colorado State's a rivalry, but it's not one of those ones you kind of think of as a major national rivalry that's going to create a game like that where, a star player ends up in the hospital, your star quarterback might get a concussion. Like I don't know what happened really to cause all that, but it's just a little bit above and beyond what normally happens in football in my mind. So that's just one thing that I think of. But for why the game was so close, Colorado State had a bye week coming into this. So they had an extra week to prepare for Sean Lewis's offense, and the Colorado defense just isn't very good. So moving forward, I don't know if I'm like sort of off the Colorado train because I'm kind of on it, but I am a lot more questionable of what's going on there. Suddenly, the wins against TCU and Nebraska are put into a different light, and so we'll see how they do against Oregon. Like I said last week, it's a week-to-week thing for Colorado, and each week we reevaluate. And the performance from this week was, a failure in my mind, an F. Even though they won in double overtime, that's a failure.
100% agree with that.
Fair. And I was watching the other nightcap game. I was actually watching Fresno State and Arizona State. But one thing I think that you touched on, Dane, that kind of brought something to my mind, and I could be wrong here, but in regards to the Colorado State game, I think the colleges may be similar culturally, but Deion Sanders is adding a new element to the culture, and I think that people, to be quite frank, may not like that he's winning so quickly. And I think that Colorado State may be, on the other end of the spectrum recently with losing a little bit of games, So I think that could just be a little bit of both sides there, and maybe hopefully, that we don't like to see those type of things in a football game. Like, so I was watching another game, but it could be a little bit of that. But let's, yeah,
Well,
we don't say
just I don't want to spend too much time on this one, but yeah, you bring up a good point too. And I mean, Norvell was brought in for his offensive prowess that he had in Nevada last year. The Colorado State offense was just atrocious. I mean, it was terrible. So it was a complete failure last year for Colorado State. I mean, I think they ended up winning 4 games, but just from what they were planning to build off of, I think from what he did at Nevada compared to what last year was, I think it was a failure. I think obviously the Washington State game to open for the Rams was not good. And I think you bring up some good points there. I think it was even within the program because obviously Norvell had the comments about Deion and taking off the hat and sunglasses when you're talking to people before. I mean, and that kind of lit a lot of fires. So, yeah, I think you're hitting on really good points there. And I think Colorado State's got a lot of issues perhaps. And maybe this was kind of a fire them up, turn things around. But I think it was an indictment on exactly where they're at as a program right now.
Yeah, no doubt, and that's part of it. When you do wear the sunglasses and all that, particularly if you're winning, it's people are probably not gonna like you either way. If you're winning, that's just a rule of life. But if you're kind of maybe doing a little bit flashier than others, you're probably gonna rub people even a little bit deeper. That if that's the right terminology there. But let's get back to some football, some funner stuff here. You guys did either of you guys have a chance to watch the BYU game? I'll start with actually not. Which one of you guys want to go first this time? Dane or Steve? Your call.
Steve.
I'll go ahead and talk about that one. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so BYU, I've watched them quite a bit this year, and I didn't see the entire game that they had against Arkansas. I mean, a lot of other games were going on then, but I was pleasantly surprised because BYU is kind of a team that I didn't really know what to expect. I kind of at the start of the year, I kind of thought they might struggle a little bit. Opener against Sam Houston State, they won 14-0. The defense looked great against Sam Houston State. I mean, granted, it is Sam Houston State, but the 14 part kind of threw you off. Sam Houston State's second game, they just moved up from FBS too, to give you some background on the Bearcats with a K of Sam Houston State. So the cat's part is a K. Sorry, yeah, not the bear, but the but
Thank
yeah,
you for the not the bear.
week two though. Week two they played Sam Houston State played Air Force, and I mean I think we all know what Air Force is. I mean Air Force plays really good defense and runs the ball against anybody, and it doesn't matter who. That final was 13-3, and I think Air Force was limited to like 4.1 yards per carry, like 249 on the game, which sounds like an amazing number, but I mean when you're talking about Air Force, you should be up over 300. So that loss, or that not loss, but the 14-0 kind of win against Sam Houston State kind of looks a little bit less sketchy than for BYU. Second game they played Southern Utah, who took Arizona State to the wire, which Arizona State's a whole other thing. I think you'll get into them there in a minute, Nick. But just beat up on Southern Utah, and the offense got going. So then it was like, all right, well, who knows what to think about BYU. Yesterday went to Fayetteville, Arkansas, knocked off Arkansas, I think 38-31. Keaton Slovis, nothing spectacular, but good enough to get the job done. They've obviously got some talent on offense that can put up some points. The defense, again, really good. And I think Keaton Slovis is kind of like your modern day, I don't know if it's an epitome for the modern day player in college football. Started off, USC, looked great, had no chance of playing there. Went to Pitt for his year, came back. Now he's a seasoned veteran senior at BYU, and I mean he's still talented. I mean, there's a reason why he was so highly touted as a freshman at USC. So, I mean, BYU's, I was kind of down on them at the start of the year, and then after the first week or so, I was down. And last week, in my rankings for the SuperWest top 25, I jumped them up like 6 spots from 20 to 14 or something, and kind of thought they'd struggle against Arkansas, but got the win there. So, I mean, this could be a team that, I mean, I think a bowl game is definitely within question. I mean, and a lot of wild games in the Big 12, and I don't think the Big 12's got a few. I mean, obviously Texas and Wyoming played really well yesterday against Texas for a long time too. But Texas, Oklahoma are obviously really good. But there's some teams that struggle in that league this year, and I think we're going to see that. I think obviously TCU, based upon some results we've seen, haven't been good. Kansas State just flubbed up one yesterday. Iowa State lost at Ohio yesterday. So BYU's, I mean, they could be knocking the door on an 8-win season perhaps if things go right.
Definitely. And then so Dane, actually, I think unless you have a dying need or like something you really want to add about BYU, were you at the Arizona game yesterday?
Yeah.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I think Arizona's defense has been really the surprise of the season, particularly the defensive line. Jed Fish brought in a whole bunch of transfers on the D-line. It's almost completely new players. There's a couple sophomores that were on the team last year that are still, building in the program and growing physically and also learning the systems and things like that. But he brought in a bunch of players via the transfer portal, and I think it's made a major difference with the defensive line. Last year, Arizona's defense was awful, just wasn't good at all, one of the worst in the country. And Jed Fish really hit the transfer portal with that in mind, improving that aspect of the team because the offense is pretty good. And so when you have an improved defensive line like that, it really shows in run defense. And last week they did a pretty good job of stopping Mississippi State's ground attack. And UTEP was more of a run-based team, and they really could not get anything going. Arizona would sell out to defend the run, which resulted in a handful of big passing plays that UTEP was able to get. And I think one was for like 50 yards or something. But overall, I think Arizona's defense is really the surprise of the season to me. And, the offense is what the offense is. Teta Iroa McMillan had another great one-handed catch. That was crazy, man. I was like, Jaden Dolores throwing a pick here. Obviously, this is going to get intercepted again, and he just grabbed that with one hand. Crowd went crazy. So yeah, it's a work in progress still, though. Not a perfect team. I think they're going to struggle really to get to 6 wins, but it's possible. I don't think they're going to get any higher than 6. So we'll see. There's still a lot to be told about Arizona Wildcats this season. I don't think we really know quite who they are yet. We'll have a better idea when they play Stanford next week, but really when Washington comes to Tucson in 2 weeks, we'll have a really good idea of what Arizona is this season.
Definitely. And while we're in the state, I was, like I mentioned or touched on earlier, I was watching the Fresno State ASU game, and One thing that really just caught me off guard was how good Fresno State was this year. I know the ASU, they honestly ASU didn't look that bad to me. I like the way they fought. I like the way Kenny Dillingham kept them kind of. I don't want to say they didn't look that bad. I like their competitive spirit. I think is a better way to phrase that. They kept playing really hard, but again, I was just impressed by Fresno State, particularly Mikey Keene, filling in for Jake Hayner. When he was gone, I thought Fresno State was going to be trash this year. Then I saw in the scores they beat Purdue. I think they beat Eastern in like 2 overtimes, but Eastern's a good team. I know that's FBS, whatever, but like Eastern Washington's a national championship caliber team. So that to me is still impressive. Just like when Arizona beat like North Dakota State last year or something like that. To me, that's maybe not that same level of victory, but very, very close. Eastern's in that caliber. And so Fresno, another, again, comes out, plays another Pac-12 team and just really dominated them. Outcoached them. Tedford just put Dillingham in his maybe his younger shoes for a second there because he got outcoached. He really did. It was pretty obvious. And just the way Mikey Keene was so fast, making quick throws, moving the ball around. They might need a proven deep threat as the year goes on, but they're really quick kind of passing games, really effective right now. Defensively, they absolutely dominated the game from start to finish. We'll probably have something there. Sorry, guys, my cat just went flying in the background there. But no, guys, from start to finish, they really dominated the game on defense. And so just like, and again, I'll touch on that in the POTWs, but really just I want to say a championship caliber performance for a team that won the Mountain West last year. They look like a championship team. And just to do this after losing Hayner to me is really impressive. I wanted to watch them in person again after that Purdue result. And I was thoroughly impressed. I picked ASU. I thought it was going to be close. And I was, again, just good work, Bulldogs. The Valley's repping right now. So, yeah.
Just one more thing on Fresno State. They didn't just lose Hayner. They lost their top running back last year, Mims. They lost their top 4 pass catchers from last year. I mean, that offense was decimated with people. And I mean, it was so it was kind of their 2-0 start surprised me just from the fact that the offense has actually looked pretty good in all 3 games now. But the defense kind of was the one. I mean, Purdue was 38-34, I think. Gave up some points. I think 24 in regulation to Eastern Washington. I don't know what it ended up being after the overtime periods. But it was kind of nice from a Fresno State point of view to see that defense just really step up and dominate yesterday. Because coming into the season, I thought the defense was by far and away the strength of that team, and it really hadn't showed out until yesterday.
Yeah, agreed. No, it was really. I like defensive football, and it was just fun to watch. And plus, it was getting late at night, and we may record these things a little bit early in the morning. So if you're gonna beat them quick. If I'm gonna be wrong. Get me to sleep. All right, guys. Here I'm gonna get on the glass really quick, see where we're at. Kind of rundown. Got about 10 minutes here. I'm thinking, guys. Do you guys want to hop over to the players of the week, team of the week, or are there any other matchups you guys want to kind of talk about right now?
Let me say one thing about Arizona State, and then let's hit Washington and Michigan State. The Sun Devils are dealing with so many injuries, particularly along the offensive line. I think they had two or three of their quarterbacks got hurt against Fresno State. I follow or see Chris Cartman up there. He's a great reporter covering Arizona State. I mean, they got so many injuries. It's unbelievable the amount of injuries that they're dealing with. Starters on both sides of the ball. It's like half the offensive line. Trenton Bourguet got hurt in the first quarter, the backup quarterback. Jaden Rashada is out for like 4 weeks or something like that for an undisclosed injury that somehow, I guess, might have been sustained last week. He didn't even play this game. And then I guess Drew Pine re-injured his leg or hamstring or something in this game against Fresno State. So they were down to their 4th-string quarterback, Conover. I think he's a transfer from BYU. There was no talk about him even taking any reps in practice all week. So they are really just dealing with a lot of injuries that's causing them to be where they are, really. They're a better team than that overall. The defense, like we've been, I don't know if you guys mentioned, but the defense is good. I think they held Fresno State to like four or five field goals, something like that. When they 5, right? And a lot of those were on turnovers. So you turn the ball over, 8 times, and you only give up 26, 29 points. That's just, testament to their defense. And really Brian Ward, defensive coordinator, came over from Washington State. That's really doing well there. So once they get those injury issues fixed, which they might not this season, they're going to be underperforming. They just are because of that injury issue. So.
Yeah, and that's a good call, and that's actually what I was kind of hinting at with just kind of why I was impressed by them. They really kept fighting, and it was that defense. That game could have been 28-0 in the first, literally the first half, like you said. So, and then Washington, Michigan. All I gotta say is wow. I mean, how good? I'll start with Dane this time. How good is Washington? This is starting to feel a little ridiculous.
Well, no, they're extremely good. I've been very high on them since the offseason. Michael Penix Jr. is executing Kalen DeBoer's offense to perfection. They don't really need to run the ball, and it still works. They got good running backs. I mean, they just don't really use them that much. And I saw at the beginning of the game, they were sort of going outside of their tendencies, running the ball a little bit more than I was expecting, and it was effective, and it put Michigan State on their back foot, and that opened the passing game up, and then it was just – it was embarrassing. If you're Michigan State, you got throttled, on your home floor or on your home field. And it was just, Washington is one of the best teams in the country. I've been saying since the offseason, since about August, that two teams from the Pac-12 could deserve to get into the college football playoff. And I'm not even that. I'm saying a Pac-12 team with 2 losses could be good enough to get into the college football playoff this season. That's how good the Pac-12 is. And you know what? It's the last year with it. If the only difference was the Pac-12 was called the SEC and it was the exact same teams that we're putting out, right now, people would be saying, oh, there's going to be 2 teams from the Pac-12 making the college football playoff, USC and Washington. And then Oregon's knocking on the door too, and maybe even Oregon State. And don't even forget about Utah. So, it's just, I don't know. It just shows you how good the Pac-12 is this season. And I still think USC is a better team than Washington. So, yeah, that's my thought. Michael Penix Jr. crushed it. He's going to crush it, throughout the rest of the season. And nobody can stop the offense. It's a, pre-snap movement, gets players into open space, the principles of it, the foundation of it, and the players know how to run it. So it's basically unstoppable.
And then, you already knew what to do, Steve.
I was going to say Michigan State. Just in there. Mel Tucker situation this week. Obviously they've got a lot of things going on outside of football right now. Mel Tucker suspended for anybody that didn't know. So obviously a tough spot for them. But yeah, no, they got shellacked, and it could have been a lot worse too. I don't know what the numbers were exactly. Maybe what do you guys do? But I know the first half, I think Washington had something like 80 yards in penalties early on, and they were still up 28-0. And I think they turned the ball over at least once or twice. And we're just running through them. And I think this was the 6th time now in 16 games that Penix has, or in 16 games now, he's got 6 of the Washington's top 10 passing performances in single games. So it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was. Just watching. It was really it's for the first 3 weeks. They literally are playing like Madden or NCAA Football 14. It's as easy as cliche to use, but they're literally throwing the ball deep when they want to every single play. It's just crazy. And that combination of Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk, it's unstoppable. And again, until we meet a team that has 3 real dangerous cover corners, I don't know how a team's necessarily going to match up without really applying constant pressure to Penix. So with that, let's see where are we at time-wise, guys, here. All right, we got a couple more minutes. Steve, I'm thinking, do you want to start with a team of the week, players of the week? Or Dane, whoever. Dane,
you can go ahead and and piggyback right on. I think you want to talk about Washington anyways, if you'd like to go player of the week first.
Yeah. Obviously, it's Michael Penix Jr. for me. 27 for 35, 473 yards and 4 touchdowns. He didn't even play in the fourth quarter. So, just domination, man. That's just the only way you can describe it. Michigan State, that's a Power 5 team on the road in the Big Ten. That's a future conference opponent. That's supposed to be a team that you don't go up 35-0 at halftime, with ease. That was unexpected. Shout out Michael Penix Jr. doing his thing. And like I said, nobody's going to be able to stop him. You might be able to blitz him. That's really the only thing that I can think of is you just blitz them all day because they're going to score a bunch of points on you anyways. So might as well try and get to him and get some pressure, get him rattled.
Well, before I kick it to Steve, I got to say one thing. I hope you guys take this with, I'm being so dead serious. I've never played a down or football in my life. I'm about 5'9", maybe 160 pounds soaking wet. I promise you, if I was out there playing DB for Michigan State, different result, baby. Spartans coming out victorious, coming out victorious, lockdown, baby. All right,
Oh, that's great.
Steve.
I'm gonna go ahead and jump on special teams here first. I think I might get back to freshman kind of at the end, but I'm gonna kind of couple special teams with also our team of the week. I don't know if you, I mean, you guys can throw out whatever teams you want as well, but my choice, Jose Paisano of UNLV is my special teamer of the week. 4 out of 5 on field goals, the game winner with 5 seconds to go. Obviously, I think actually Fresno State. If Dane, to kind of talk about where you went. Dylan Lynch was 5 of 7 with a long of 50. So another standout guy at special teams, but 7 field goal attempts that Fresno actually had against Arizona State, to further your point there. But Paisano's my guy with UNLV getting the game winner against Vanderbilt. Mountain West getting a win over an SEC team yesterday. UNLV went down 17-0 early. So they're kind of going to be my team of the week too. Ricky White had a huge game. Michigan State probably could have still used him yesterday, but he's a Rebel now and had a gigantic game. Jaden Mava, freshman, threw couple picks, threw 1 pick late, and still went from goat to hero, setting up the game-winning drive there late. But yeah, so UNLV's down 17-0. Doug Bremfield takes a big hit, goes out after I think his 4th pass. I think it was the first drive. The play he got hurt on was a pick 6, so just kind of furthers things down. Mava steps in, has solid numbers, does pretty well. I think he was 19 of 33 with 261, had 33 passing for the freshman. But stepped up. UNLV got the job done against Vanderbilt. Now, granted, it's Vanderbilt, but it's still an SEC team, and it's also UNLV. And I think Odom is. I think Odom's going to turn that team around. I think it's already out there. I mean, against Michigan last week, obviously they went to Ann Arbor, and I mean, there's only so much that UNLV could do there, but avoided the shutout late against the Wolverines, the second ranked team in the country. I think the final was like 35-7. I think UNLV is a much better team after that game than they were beforehand, but 2-1 start for the Rebels. I think things could be turning around in Vegas. And Paisano's my special teamer of the week.
Cool deal. And I got Carlton Banks for Fresno State. Let me look up his stats too, though.
Carlton Johnson.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just combined a couple names there. Carlton Johnson and where's his stats at for the game? Yeah, his stats for the actual game. I pulled up the season stats. Bottom line, I watched the game, and he was the most dominant player on a team that was absolutely just, again, desecrated a Pac-12 Power 5 team. And I think that if Johnson can continue to kind of – did I really just say Carlton Banks? I just realized that's Bel Air. That's fire. No, I'm happy. I heard that. I was like, wait a minute. Bottom line.
3 picks for Johnson, too. 3 picks.
Yeah, seriously. No, but Carlton Johnson, seriously, just most dominant player on a team that was absolutely, as I want to say, outperformed everyone's standards. And if the defense can continue to play at this level, I'm really excited to see what the Bulldogs can do this year. And so for you, either you guys got a team of the week before we get out of here, or nah?
Well, I'm going to go freshman of the week real quick. I'll go our freshman. I'm going to go Braden Fowler Nicolosi, who replaced Clay Millen. I think we already talked about him against Colorado, but freshman stepping in there, 367 yards. Did have 3 picks against Colorado, but also 3 TDs. And I mean, at this point in time, I'm going to go with the notion that Colorado's pretty good, and this was a completely 180 on this Colorado State team. And you got to think maybe it's the quarterback right there. So.
Cool, perfect. So I think that's kind of our POTWs. You guys want to Do you guys want to do a team of the week?
Let me do an opposite team of the week that we haven't talked about yet that did not meet my expectations, and that's Oregon State. I really don't know about Oregon State. I know that they got a great offensive line. Like, I know they have a great running back, and I might be blasphemous saying all this right now, but I was not very impressed with their performance at home against San Diego State. I was expecting it to be a much wider margin of victory. I was not expecting it to be sort of a game in the fourth quarter. And, you only score, 12 points. It was 12-3 at halftime. That's questionable to me. UCLA went to San Diego State and absolutely crushed them. So if we're comparing apples to apples, UCLA has got to be over Oregon State, right? I mean, maybe, I don't know, but it just I am not impressed with Oregon State's performance against San Diego State. Let me just put it that way.
And then
Yeah.
I got one more question for both of you. Just real quick touch on what's Cal? What is California? I mean, are they good or not? Like they play Auburn well, and then kind of yesterday against was it Idaho that just struggled.
No.
Yeah,
No is your answer. No, they're not good. No.
Yeah,
well, okay. They didn't have Jaden Ott, so
That's true.
their best player didn't play. The defense is good. I'll give them the secondary's got to be one of the better ones in the Pac-12. Some transfers that they brought in, and I think they do pretty well in the secondary. I don't think Auburn's a very good team, but it's an SEC program. Idaho, they just beat Nevada by like 40 or what was it, 30
27.
points. So
Yeah.
yeah, so Idaho is not a bad team. They ran a pretty decent offense. It's kind of up tempo with a mobile quarterback. So. I think the problem in Cal is the quarterback situation. They took forever to name a starter, and they don't really have a clear-cut front runner. I mean, I know Sam Jackson's running the show there, and he's mobile and basically has the starting role, but it leaves something to be desired at the quarterback position, and I think that's probably holding Cal back.
And that's exactly why I say no, because look, as something I'm still trying to kind of learn here is like, you got to be the face of like a whatever your day job, your like night job, your family, whatever it may be. You got to be the face of organization. And Wilcox is stellar at that. Seems like a great people person, but really he hasn't gotten the job done at Cal. They've been bad. They've not been good. They haven't lived up to expectations once, I feel like. And with that quarterback, they had the quarterback last year, and they still didn't do it with Chase Garbers. And so I just find it hard to see how this team is going to get any better. That's just how I feel. And now Wilcox isn't that. Wilcox isn't that. He's got to prove it to me now mode. Plain and simple. So yeah. But and then for my team of the week, I do want to shout out Fresno State, led by Carlton Banks one more time.
And it's 3 interceptions. It was 3 interceptions for him too.
3 interceptions. Yeah, thank you for throwing that out there. I pulled up the season stats, so I didn't want to just read off something wrong there. But yeah, guys, this has been SuperWest on Sundays. Thank you for joining us. For Dane and Steven, this is Nick. Deuces.